The Plateau of Thieves. Thieves, in an attempt to bury the crystalline truth in darkness, and force the world to accept this monumental pillage, have authored a synthetic history, one written with ink, mingled with the blood of the oppressed. This cold, soulless historical construct begins with the Sumerians. Yet, the history they have plundered, with their stained hands, belongs to a legacy thousands of years older than oral civilizations. It belongs to the solemn and ancient shadow of the Kurdish gods. The motive of this plateau of thieves is clear: to launder their spoils as if they were legitimate gains and to build a facade of false grandeur upon this wreckage. To achieve this, it was necessary to brutally extinguish the preceding Kurdish history, where the sun first rose. For it is a dark law of history that you cannot raise your own false idols without first tearing down a sacred truth. The very purpose of establishing the plateau of thieves is to darken millennia of memory, to erase the soul of a people, and to vanish the truth from the earth forever. They know all too well that unless they annihilate the Kurds, the ancient and long-suffering people of Mesopotamia, these fabricated histories will crumble like castles made of sand, collapsing as monuments of shame. Their descent into assimilation, the colonization of spirits, and systematic slaughter stems from one terrifying reality: the desperate need to hide that they are but thieves, masquerading as masters in another's clothes. Yet, thousands of years before the Sumerians arrived, via those dusty paths to Mesopotamia, the light of Utu shone here, the waters of Anahita bore fertility, and the justice of gods like Zervan and Mara reigned supreme. The Mother Earth was tilled with love, and life was breathed into the wilderness through vast irrigation canals. All the efforts of the Plateau of Thieves are directed toward looting this magnificent heritage, protecting their concocted lies, and securing their own guilt. Our duty is to tear the shroud off these centuries-old deceptions and bring the truth to light. The Sumerians. When the Sumerians stepped onto these lands, as stated before, there was already a magnificent order here, its roots reaching toward the heavens. Irrigation canals nourished the soil, and the unshakable justice of ancient gods governed this silent geography. This newly arrived community dissolved into that dignified society, clinging to them through marriage and merging under the shade of this ancient tree. However, over time, this integration transformed into a surreptitiously planned cultural pillage. The Sumerians seized the sacred Mesopotamian heritage, its gods, and its intricately woven scientific knowledge like bandits. Lacking a history of their own, they began to market this legacy as their own property. They etched agriculture, the sacred science of irrigation, and the celestial language of astronomy onto the starting point of history as their own seal, as if they had conjured them from nothingness. 1. Egypt and the priest-seer confession. The memory of Zarathustra. Egypt acted with a relatively honest grief while absorbing the ancient solar and justice cults of Mesopotamia. Yet, this honesty was, in fact, a silent operation of seizing a massive legacy. The soul-shaking dialogue between the priest and seer, Solon, reveals the greatest confession of this theft. The historical slap the Egyptian priest dealt to Siro explains everything. You Greeks are always children. There is not even a shadow of an ancient faith, an ancestral pain in your souls. Here, the priest unhesitatingly admitted that our memory is Zarathustra, confessing that even the gargantuan pillars of Egyptian civilization were fed by the ancient wisdom of Mesopotamia. However, the pharaohs sacrificed these sublime and populist values to their own systems of tyranny, stealing the titles of God-King from these lands and their rightful owners. Even today's cold laboratory studies on DNA and mummies strike the face of history like a slap, showing that the blood in those pharaohs' veins belonged to the children of this geography, to the Kurds. Mehmet Yigit Akeoklu,